starting your day off with a take on Vegas you won't get anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Holly Madison, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Hi, this is William Shatner, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Hey, this is Larry the Cable Guy, and I listen to Brian Shapiro. Why? Because I'm a good American. So is he. And if you don't listen to him, you need to pack up and leave this country.
This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Come on, guys!
What's up, everybody? Happy President's Day. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Some of you still on your weekend. We are here. The Vegas Take is here. We don't take days off. Well, that's not true. Sometimes we do, but not today. And we're going to be talking about the president a lot. That's right. It is Sharp and Shapiro. Today it is Wynn and Shapiro. Mr. Chris Wynn, who joins us every Monday, is here. It happens to be Monday. Chris, thank you for being here.
It's always fun to join you, Mr. Shapiro. And you know what? It's funny. There's never anything to talk about when we roll in on a Monday after that nice
no, there's nothing to talk
weekend
about.
that we had going on.
Right. There's quite a lot to talk about, including a little Twitter. I shouldn't call it a Twitter war, but certainly I exploded a little bit of information in regards to UNLV basketball and a possible coaching change. I will explain to you in some detail what I know, what I heard. Is Rick Pitino going to get the job here or not? Well, I do have some information, and we'll be joined by Casey Soto, who does a great job with the Review Journal covering the UNLV basketball team and, of course, the Mountain West Conference. So we'll get to that in hour number 2. But we're going to start by talking about Donald Trump and this so-called state of emergency with building this wall. Let me start with a little levity, okay? Do you remember when Donald Trump was criticizing Barack Obama for playing golf? You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what he tweeted back in 2014. This is Donald Trump. Quote, "Can you believe with all the problems and difficulties facing the U.S., President Obama spent the day playing golf? Worse than Carter." Those were Donald Trump's words back in 2014. Well, as you know, Donald Trump declared this immigration wall, whatever you want to call it, his border wall. He declared the emergency on Friday. The last 3 days. 3 days in a row, Donald Trump has played golf in West Palm Beach, Florida. Does that bother any of you out there? Does that bother anybody out there? Even if you are a supporter of Donald Trump, he just declared a state of emergency, and he has played golf for the 3rd day in a row. On Saturday, he played golf for 6 hours. George Conway is the husband, of course, of White House Counselor Kellyanne Conway, and he joked Sunday that the golf outing was an emergency round. Somebody, I guess, sent him a picture of Donald Trump getting an omelet at the golf course. I'm sorry, folks. But first of all, he criticized Obama for many of the things that he does. By the way, he's played almost 3 times more golf than Barack Obama. Does that bother anybody? It's the 159th time the president has visited a golf course since his inauguration back in January of 2017. So that's disgraceful. 16 states now have filed a lawsuit to stop Trump's national emergency declaration. 16! This is no laughing matter here, folks. I do not believe this wall was going to be built. And, Chris, we saw all these interviews over the weekend, right? Mm-hmm. We saw the Stephen Miller interview over the weekend, which was obviously big. And McCabe. What do you make of what transpired over the weekend? And then we'll take some calls on this issue.
Well, it's all on the heels, of course, of what went down on Friday and the opportunity where President Trump took, and he declared a state of emergency after lawmakers in Washington, D.C., after deliberation and lots of debate and discussion, decide to pass a bill both through the House and through the Senate that would avoid a second government shutdown that would have taken place on Friday. And so President Trump, who has been talking for the past couple of weeks and for the past month about the possibility that he could declare a state of emergency, did just that on Friday. And so now there's been a lot of discussion about a lot of things, about the Constitution of the United States, about the precedent this sets and the floodgates that could be opened and the can of worms and, what could happen, now that a Republican president has done this. What does it mean if a liberal or progressive Democrat gets into the White House and decides to declare a state of emergency? There's been a lot of discussion also, Brian, about what exactly a state of emergency means when you declare one. And is it rational? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Okay. And there's been a lot more debate and discourse from both sides of the aisle as to who's right and who's wrong in this situation. I have to admit, Brian, and I want to hear the reaction from the callers out there that are going to be calling in the Vegas Take about what their reaction was with this. Mine was absolutely being disheartened and disgusted. And it's for this very quick reason I will give. Okay? You declare a state of emergency, President Trump. All right? After all the debate, after everything, after all the talk in regards to the government shutdown that could have been a possibility. How are you going to circumvent the system, declare a state of emergency, which is basically, for all intents and purposes, going around Congress and going around lawmakers in Washington, D.C., and taking advantage of the power of the purse and money being allocated, okay, from other areas of the government? After we just had a shutdown back at the end of December, okay, where you shut the government down because you weren't able to get the financing for this wall. Okay, so that is all for nothing here. I mean, you have to be absolutely, positively kidding me, Brian. All right, that the President of the United States is going to go down this road, and I'm not even getting into the discussion yet. We haven't even started to get into the meat and potatoes of why this isn't a national emergency, right, and why it can't be. It shouldn't be justified as some type of state emergency. And we're going to get into the details on that. And now you can't wait to go toe-to-toe with a lot of listeners who are going to be calling in here.
After 9/11, did George W. Bush go play golf for 3 days?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That you could look at that and say, oh, that's a political thing, a political misstep by the president. But that's not
that goes
something
to show me his state of mind.
But Brian, are we really surprised that Donald Trump would do something like this? Are we really shocked, given the amount of contradictions and hypocrisy that has taken place in regards to President Trump and situations like this?
How about in the speech he made? He mentioned 5 other things before this situation, including why he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He mentioned that before the border wall situation. It goes to show you his state of mind. I'll take some calls on this. The number to call, 257-5396. Again, let me give out that number one more time. If you want to be a part of this conversation with myself and Chris Wynn, the number to call, 702-257-5396. Of course, we're talking about the Donald Trump state of emergency with this border wall. Myself, Chris included, do not agree with it, as do many Republicans, as do many Democrats. There are a lot of people out there that do not think that he should be doing this, even from a legal standpoint. And again, it's important to note, not just people on the left, people on the right as well think that Donald Trump made a mistake. Unless when you talk to somebody like Lindsey Graham, you talk to people out there like that, or people that are just so biased like Stephen Miller. What did you make of that Stephen Miller interview over the weekend? I thought that was just a complete debacle, and he just made himself look like a complete disgrace.
Well, he has a habit of going on these shows when he really shouldn't go anywhere near a television camera, because at times it ends up being a word salad, and he just absolutely flat out embarrasses himself when he starts to discuss whether it's constitutionality or starts to get into any legal argument. Or it's not even an argument, a legal discussion, because he's being interviewed by somebody. But it seems to me, anytime that guy gets in front of a camera and in any type of interview, he's just overmatched by the interviewer. Or it doesn't even matter if it's a rookie reporter or if it's somebody, as sound as I think Chris Wallace is. So it was tough to see. But the Lindsey Graham thing was also really just disgusting for me to see. And I want to hear from Republicans out there that what they think about Lindsey Graham. This is someone, Lindsey Graham has just absolutely become someone who parrots the president, right? And his ideals and his principles have gone out the window in a matter of... Do we all not remember last year when Lindsey Graham was talking about the possibility, right, of the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, being relieved of his duties and leaving that position? Do we all remember what Lindsey Graham, the Honorable Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, said? Mm-hmm. He said if Jeff Sessions were to be fired or let go from his job as Attorney General of the United States, he said that would be the beginning of the end of the Trump presidency. It would be the end as we know it. And I believe he used the phrase "holy hell would break loose," something along those lines. He was extremely opinionated back then. So where was he when Jeff Sessions was fired?
Well, obviously, I agree.
That's just one example. There's been so many other examples.
There are a lot of people on the right that want to talk about, certain situations where an illegal comes into this country, commits a horrific crime, and kills somebody, right? And, one person is too many. Obviously, we never want that to happen. It's horrible. But I do feel like a lot of people on the right use that as a political ploy. Here's a story that you won't hear about. A transgender woman from the U.S., a few days ago, was deported back to her native El Salvador and died earlier this month as she was attacked outside the country's capital. Yeah, she came into this country illegally. Why? She migrated to the U.S. because of threats that she had received, and she was deported back, because they didn't believe her. That is according to an LGBTI rights advocacy group that is claiming, but it's the truth of the matter is that's why she was murdered. She was murdered in El Salvador because she was a transgender. Right. She came to this country because she feared for her life, and she was deported back. This was a person that had never committed a felony. This was a person that had never been arrested before. This is a person that's never committed a crime before. She did come into this country illegally. Yes, that is a crime. But the point I'm trying to make is, why don't we hear from the right about situations like this? People that are in dire straits, people that need to come into this country because they are in fear of their lives, the families that come into this country with their children who want better lives for their children. The right won't talk about that. They won't talk about the majority of these people that are coming into this country illegally happen to be very good people, that are caring people, that are hardworking people, that are mowing your lawns, that are washing your dishes, and so on and so forth. The right won't talk about stuff like that. Now, why is that? Because Donald Trump has an agenda. As he said when he was campaigning for the presidency of the United States, we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. He lied to all of you. But yet all of you out there, some of you out there that support him, still believe that Mexico is going to pay for this wall when there is no evidence of that. It's not going to happen. It's going to be paid for by taxpayers like you and me. But people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about this transgender who lost her life. It is a horrible situation. And I don't want to hear the nonsense from some people saying, well, she should have done it legally. Well, she should have done it appropriately. Sometimes you don't have the means to do that. And not all of these people have the means to be able to do it legally, and it is also a process. And many of these people are in fear for their lives. Is there a small percentage of those people that are bad people? Absolutely. And I don't want them in the country. You don't want them in the country. Democrats don't want them in the country. But I am so sick and tired of the rhetoric. I am so sick and tired of the President of the United States demonizing these people. They are human beings, not animals, as Don Jr. compared to a wall in a zoo, comparing it to these people that are trying to get into this country. They are not animals. These are human beings, the majority of them very, very good people. Stop it with the rhetoric and let's call it like it is, okay? In 2000, okay, there were at least 3 times more illegals into this country than there are now. Why wasn't it a state of emergency under George W. Bush? You know why? Because it wasn't an emergency. That's exactly why. I'll open up the phone lines at 257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the program, 702-257-5396 is the number to call. And let's start with Gary. Gary, thanks for calling in. How are you?
I guess it's official. I'm a serial caller. But you know what? I have to disagree with you on several things, but the thing that really got me was when you said the right never talks about these people that are hardworking and they come over here. I've heard many of them. Now, don't ask me to be specific which one said what when.
Not the president.
I've heard say that they would try to get over here if they were over there, and a lot of them are hardworking people, and they have family values, and they believe in Jesus Christ and this, that, and everything. But all in all, they want them to come here legally.
Gary, if I could just respond and say I haven't heard the President of the United States talk about that since he was elected in office. He said some of these people coming into this country are good people, I would imagine, I would assume. But he said people coming in, they're rapists, they're bad people. Yeah. That is the President of the United States. Now, you're right, Gary. Let me just say again, and maybe where I made a mistake there. Not everybody on the right is saying that. But I would like to say the majority of people that support Donald Trump, the majority of the people that are diehard Trump supporters talk like that. They want to demonize these people from coming into this country, Gary. You have to admit that.
All right, I admit it, but the people that killed that transgender person, that's some of the mentality that they have, and we're going to let them in our country. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't want to disagree with you. I want to listen to the show.
Okay, Gary.
I'm burnt out, man.
All right, Gary, we appreciate you calling in, my man. Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
So it brings us back to circle around to what exactly, Brian, is a state of emergency. Okay, you just pointed out the year 2000 and why not over the past 15, 20 years have presidents that have been in more dire straits when it comes to the southern border as far as facts go. Okay,
Yeah.
You pointed out the one fact. The fact of the matter is that we are at a 50-year low in illegal border crossings coming from the southern border.
Exactly.
Right?
That is a key stat.
We are at 80 to 90% of all the illicit and illegal drugs that come across from the southern border are coming through legal points of entry. These are not numbers that I'm making up in my head or that you're making up in your head, Brian. These are numbers that come from Trump's own people on the southern border who are experts.
That's right.
Okay?
No, I agree.
We're at a point in this country right now where it's not a state of emergency on the southern border.
It shouldn't be.
Now, look, there is a humanitarian crisis at the border in regards to, how certain things are being handled down there, but we are not at a state of emergency. And here's a whopper that I'm going to toss out to all you people out there. And if you can come on this, if you want to call in and you want to tell me about all the episodes that take place in regards to national security, okay? Name me one terrorist attack that's taken place by somebody that has crossed the border illegally on the southern border.
They can't, Chris.
That's taken place in the last 20 years.
They can't, Chris. That's the truth. Let's get to some more calls. Phone lines are logged up. If you're having trouble getting in, please continue to call. We will do our best for you. Let's start with Mike. Mike, thanks for calling in. How are you?
I'm fine. Hey, guys. Man, you guys sure have it hard for old Trump.
No, I have it hard.
Yeah, you guys are just. You just don't like the guy. And, Obama did pretty much the same stuff, and you guys were quiet as church mice.
Mike, can I respond to that? Can I respond? First.
Yeah, I love it because we'll have it. If you want to have a dialogue,
let's do it.
I'll respond to a lot of that stuff you said that
that's fine.
Don't do.
Can I just respond to what you said?
Yes,
and I'll gladly have a respectful discussion with you, even though we're probably going to disagree. I have no problem with that. First of all, Barack Obama never declared a state of emergency at the southern border. So let's just start there. So that is a huge thing that you just said. Obama never did that, okay?
Okay, can I respond now real quick?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You guys were complaining because of the unconstitutionality of the process. So
I didn't say that.
We're not talking about I don't care what it's for.
I didn't say that.
You guys were complaining. You were aghast.
I didn't say that.
That Trump did what Obama has done. So either it's legal to do or it's not, and they all
First of all, I never said that. I have a problem with him playing golf 3 days in a row after declaring a national emergency. It shows the state.
I have a problem with you comparing him playing golf with this and 9/11. That was ludicrous.
That was an emergency, wasn't it? That was an emergency, wasn't it? George W. Bush declared that a state of emergency.
9/11 was an actual emergency. Yes, it was.
You were comparing the playing of golf. And
no, I wasn't comparing. I was saying
9/11 was a national
I wasn't
emergency.
comparing. I was saying George W. Bush didn't play golf. He didn't play golf, and that was a state of emergency. My point. What do you mean, so what? You're okay with the President of the United States declaring a state of emergency and playing golf 3 days in a row? And your response to that is, so what?
Obama went and played
I'm not talking about Obama. I'm talking about the President of the United States right now.
Because you never did that with Obama.
I didn't. Did you listen to my show during Obama?
Yes, I did.
On what station? On what station? On what? Excuse me, sir. What station was I on? What station was I on when I talked about Barack Obama? Can you please tell me? Or are you going to be a liar on the radio?
You've never talked about Obama.
Excuse me. You just said when Obama. You just said when Obama was on the air. You listened to me talk about it.
No, when Obama was president. Obama was president.
What station was I on? Answer the question.
You can't. Let me help you. You can't answer it because
you're a liar.
And because Brian was never. He was a sports talk radio host. He's never been on a station where he's been talking politics whatsoever for the last 10 years.
You're
so
a
you
fraud.
couldn't have it.
I hung up on you because you're a fraud and you're a liar. Goodbye.
Look, how are you going to do? He's trying to say that Barack Obama has done some of the same things that President Trump has done.
Stupid.
Let me throw another number at you really quickly, okay? The last caller who was a complete buffoon. All right. There's been 60 declarations in recent history of national emergencies across the country, okay? Of the other 59 declarations of a national emergency. There has been bipartisan support across the board, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, for the president declaring a state of emergency.
Yes.
The American people have all supported the declarations of an emergency because you know why? Because they have been emergencies and because they have been needed and because there's been needed funding for them. There's a lot of reasons. So this declaration by President Trump was historic, and it was not in a good way on Friday.
The bottom line is, Chris,
it sets a precedent.
The bottom line is when Mike calls up and he hears anybody criticize the president, he automatically thinks we're on the left or we're Democrats. That's the type of ignorant person that votes who I wish shouldn't be allowed to vote. You need an IQ test, Mike. That's what you need, and I don't think you would pass it. Let's go to Shelley. Shelley, thanks for calling in. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you guys tonight?
Doing good, Shelley. What's on your mind?
Listen, I'm on the right, and I support Trump 100%.
100%?
My brother was killed by an illegal alien.
And that's horrible, and I wish that never happened, Shelley.
That's awful. That is
Well, hold on. I also worked down at the border for 10 years as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been down to the border to see what comes across the border?
No, but I do know the statistics. So, I mean, I'm trying to, I feel horrible what happened to your brother. I wish that didn't happen, just like I wish no innocent person would be killed. That's terrible, Shelley, but it still doesn't change my opinion, and I feel horrible. But that doesn't change my opinion.
And it doesn't change the statistics either, the overall statistics. Look, there are absolutely horrible, atrocious tragedies that have taken place. Her brother. There have been a number of others that, Kate Steinle, of course, in San Francisco. There was the officer that was killed in California. Look, these are, but we note all of these, and they are all anecdotal. Okay, they're all you can't just blame, anybody that crosses the southern border and say, my relative or my friend.
I hate to compare it like this, but my grandmother was killed by a drunk driver. But I'm not going to say we got to ban alcohol. I
agree, and I totally agree with you. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with them migrating appropriately and legally. What I have a problem with, and I have seen this firsthand, being absolutely at the border, living down there and working down there, is they come over. And I'm not saying all, and I don't want to say blanket it, okay, but the only way to get a hold on it is to put a stop to it, to start the process again once we get immigration.
Can I ask you a question? Shelley, can I ask you a question? And we only have about 45 seconds here.
Okay.
I don't want to cut. I want to cut you off, but we're up on a hard break here. Shelley, you do realize that many of the majority of the illegals in this country overstay their visas. So why haven't we brought that up?
Oh, I agree. We should.
Okay, good. Then we're on the same page. So let me ask you one more quick question. With that $5.6 billion or $8 billion, however money Donald Trump gets, why can't we appropriate it so that we can address all the issues, not just a wall?
He actually did. He actually is.
That's not what I heard.
Verify. We need to have the wall. Why did Pelosi and Schumer and Obama all vote for the wall, and now they're against it?
Well, unfortunately, Shelley, I have to take a break. I will have to answer that question when we come back. And
I wish you would.
And I apologize, and I am so sorry what happened to your brother. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. I appreciate you calling in. Thank you, Shelley. Yes, and I'll answer her question. Actually, we both will.
I will too.
Why don't we both answer Shelley's question when we come back? And if you want to join the program, we got a couple of people on hold. 257-5396. Again, 257-5396. We will take a break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take.